I'm gonna do some invites. Title of this one is Blood In, Blood Out. Um, Severing blood oaths and soul contracts the correct way. So I'm gonna do some invites to this and get this party started. So first, when I do these invites, we make soul contracts, a lot of us, because we don't know who we are. If you one of certain group of people, you got a certain strain in your DNA, and you making a agreement with somebody, you're not just making that agreement here in the 3D world all the time. Sometimes we make these agreements in the realm of the spirit. So I'm gonna do a couple more of these invites. I ain't gonna do a lot of them. I just want to get some people in here. If y'all have any questions, because this is a very critical subject at this era, because we have to get rid of a lot of soul contracts and a lot of oaths and agreements made in our lifetime, in some cases multiple lifetimes, depending on the person and the position they play in your life. I'm going to do a couple more of these invites right quick. We're going to talk about soul contracts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, that's enough. Alright, so, the soul contract, it's a crazy thing. This is how you can accidentally create a soul contract. If you have what they call grail blood, which most people on Earth should have at least a drop, and you ask somebody something, or not ask them, tell them that you're going to do something 3 times, you just made a soul contract with them if you have the grail blood. It's the same as they making a pact with God when they make a pact with certain people. If it's a Grail King and you accuse them of doing something to you 3 times, you just made a soul contract, and whatever you accused them of, now they can't control it. All they can do is try to minimize the situation you created by the false allegation. So 3 false allegations makes a soul contract of condemnation to a Grail King. So it's basically like putting them in the worst possible position you can by falsely accusing them 3 times. It has to happen, and it has to happen to the person that's falsely accusing them. If you make a promise, see, everybody get lost up with this word promise. The promise is a soul state guarantee. I mean, you stake your soul on it, and you guarantee you're going to follow through with it at the cost of your soul. So when you do a false promise, you basically surrendering your right to your soul, and you don't even know it. And that's why you have a promised land and a holy land. They're 2 different things. Because God gave the promised land to a specific group of people. America is the promised land, and sub-Saharan Africa is the holy land. So, we can go into how do we get into blood oaths unknowingly. In this modern era where people like to do adornments, piercings, tattoos, and things of this nature, the physical vessel can be used as a magical implement in order to facilitate what you would call a manifestation of an agreement. So if you if you do anything that causes blood to be shed at, like for instance, 5 football players might make a pact to always meet up somewhere, and then they might get a tattoo to commemorate it. They made a blood oath. 2 best friends chicks might skip high school one day and swear to always be best friends, and they get tattoos. Even when they fall out, they always find themselves best friends after that because they made that blood oath. It's a contract. When a guy and a girl go into a relationship, getting piercings and tattoos to commemorate the beginning of the relationship, they don't even know they just got married. That is a soul contract and a blood oath, along with an agreement before God without you going through all of the ceremonial BS. The tattoo is the blood oath. The image, as in my case, my tattoo here is my tribal totem. And for a Grail King to allow somebody to tattoo their tribal totem on them, that's a big fucking deal. That's a big deal. Because whatever his rank is in the clan, whoever, if it's of the opposite sex, she is equally ranked with him. The same rank. Except he is the masculine, she the feminine. If it's the other way around, he evenly ranked with her. If she's the feminine, he's the masculine. But the power position is the same, the level. The execution is always different because the women in the matriarchal culture is the lawgiver, and the man executes the law. So we get into agreements and soul contracts without knowing, because we wasn't woke, all the way woke. We wasn't really aware of what we were doing, so we got caught in a contract. So we need to know how to get from under those contracts. Now those contracts or those agreements, blood rights, and soul contracts, they all have an exit. It's supposed to. If you got a tattoo, it should have a meaning, or you shouldn't have it. The soul contract can be broken amicably, which means no harsh side effect land on either side of the agreement. There's no consequence to breaking it if it's done amicably. 2 people sit down and say, look, this wasn't working. And like in the case where all you have to do is exchange a drop of blood apiece. And I'm going to go through the ritual. I'm going to explain the ritual of severing the blood oath amicably. But before I get into that, there's another way to sever the blood oath non-amicably. Now, the person that's aware of the blood oath can do serious damage to the other person's entire life by breaking it one-sided because of whatever their grievance. Because anytime you break an oath, in order to break the oath, you have to vex the grievance unless it's an amicable severance of the agreement. So whatever grievance you vex is the punishment that that person incurs if it's truthful. So let's say that you had a blood oath, you had a piercing with a chick, y'all got married, then y'all got divorced, and you just realized that you was in the blood oath with her. So you can solo sever that blood oath and ruin her life. But let's say she was really a good chick and you just can't get in touch with her to break the oath. You can't break the oath without vexing the grievance one-sided. It has to be a two-sided severance of the agreement, or you have to vex a grievance. Now, if your grievance in which you severing the oath with is the absence, you can try to offer a talisman of protection to the other person because you don't know how to get in touch with them, and you would put that in your grievance. You know, so and so, most caring and loving. Only grievance is the absence of the person in my presence. You know, and then you can sever it. Then minimizing. It's still going to get a side effect because it's a one-sided breaking of the contract or the oath. And so the um, the contract is a little different than the oath, the blood oath or the blood right oath. When you take a blood right, that is more binding than any other form of magic. When you use your blood in a ritual, and sometimes we don't even understand we performing an arcane ritual that tribal ancestors perform until we start waking up and we start to remember these things, and we be like, holy crap. And sometimes we don't wake up and remember, and we might run across it in a textbook or a research manual or something where somebody did research on a tribe that we was investigating because we thought we was linked to it, and find out we were, and that this was one of our practices, like marriage. You know, you got different marriage ceremonies around the world that do set up for different purposes. So when you get ready to sever a blood oath, the best way to do it is amicably, because it is the most harshly punished of all of the oaths. So um, that it should absolutely be severed amicably and in person between the two people. Because if you have a blood oath contract, it's the same as what was said in John Wick. The guy, De San Antonio, whatever, D'Antonio told John Wick that to make a blood oath is to bind a soul to a contract before God. It is an unbreakable oath. So when you decide to break a blood oath, it should be done amicably, or you can really ruin a person's life by a one-sided severance of that oath or that agreement that was made in blood. So the easiest one, like I say, to sever is a verbal contract made by a 3 times agreeing to something. You can sever that one one-sided and minimize the side effect to the other person. Some of y'all won't care, and y'all just sever the oath, and y'all don't care if the person's whole life is effed up. And some people might have done something to you where you feel they deserve that. That's up to you. But then there's some people that's going to have people that was good in their life, that life circumstances, they not together no more, where those people not in their lives, and they need to sever the oath in order to clear their spirit field, the auric field of the other person's binding influence. And so you have to perform a ritual of shedding of the blood. Blood in, blood out. It's the same thing the gangbangers tell you. Blood in, blood out. So if you did a blood ritual to enter it, you have to do a blood ritual to exit it. So in the case where a blood ritual was performed, and you may have at the time been unaware that you were signing the blood oath, and then you want to severance this blood oath with the other person, this is a process. Both people have to come together, and they have to sit down and vex their grievances to each other. And if they don't have grievances and they don't want to sever, one of them might not want to sever the oath, or both of them might not want to sever the oath, but because they didn't never know it was in play to that magnitude. In which case, they won't vex grievances; they will vex agreements, and that's the exact opposite of a grievance. Like instead of saying, "I don't like the way you treated me," you ran out with the neighbor and slept with the dog. You would say something more to the contrary, like you was good to me, you treated me fair when other people treated me unfair, and you'd run down the good things and you say, I want to uphold my portion of the oath. At this point, the other person has the option to allow you to uphold your portion as long as you release them from any obligation to upholding their portion. That's a one-sided release of a contract. But that's the same as you swearing allegiance to somebody's personal servant or slave, depending on what the blood oath was commemorating when you done it. So if both people don't have anything really negative or any grievance to vex, then they uphold those truths that they think is binding to the relationship, and they swear allegiance to the blood oath, and whatever it was, they would repeat it in order to strengthen the oath. So in the case of like a piercing, the piercing might have closed, they'll get the piercing reopened to what's up, Daniel? They'll get the piercing reopened to reaffirm. In the case where a tattoo might be faded, which may be a contributing factor to the deterioration of a blood oath relationship, and that's why you should use non-fading ink, tattoo ink, um, period. Because when they start to fade and they charge with certain energies, the energies become weaker. And if it was like a commemoration of a relationship, as it fades, so does the relationship. But it's still there. So what it does is pushes the relationship into the background because it's fading now. It's fading, but it can't go away because the blood oath signature is still present. And this is where you get that term years ago, signing it in blood. Because when you signed it in blood, then only God can break that contract before it's fulfilled unless both people agree. Normally when God break that contract like that, he'll make you carry it out in another lifetime or in another galaxy or universe or however you want to say it. So once you get done vexing the grievance or the agreement, it depends on how you want to handle this blood oath. But in this case, we're talking about severing it. So we're not going to go into too much into the maintenance of the blood oath. The severing of the blood oath, you can take a little glass of water, about like a 4-6 ounce glass of water, and both people prick their finger to get a drop of blood like you're doing a diabetic test. A single drop of blood is all it takes. And when you put the single drop of blood in the water, you say, with my blood I made this oath, with my blood I break this oath, and you put it in the water, and the other person do the same, and when you both have it in there, you take the water outside, which you probably should have been doing outside to begin with, but people do things in their own style, which makes it more effective anyway. But then you take it out to the ground. So now it's in the water, you know what I'm saying? The water is carrying the blood to the grounding of the earth. The earth is going to ground out the contract. It's going to sever the contract. And you can make your own rituals up along these lines. These are just guidelines. But in the case where you got the 2 drops in the water, and you already said, with my blood I make this oath, with my blood I break this oath. Remember, blood in, blood out. When you pour it on the ground, you ask Mother Earth, you know what I'm saying, to honor the severing of the oath by absorbing the water and the blood. And if y'all pretty much done after that, if you can carry on to a ritual closing, or y'all can just turn and walk away and don't look back at each other once you sever the oath. And that's where y'all at. As far as the maintenance of it, there's no further obligation once the oath has been mutually severed. So when 2 people sever the oath, the blood oath, then that's it. You don't have anything to do unless you create it in your own mind. The bond will break. And a lot of times we find ourselves attached to people that we can't stand and we can't figure out why. We've probably done some kind of blood oath or a pain rite, which is a lot of the times what domestic violence situations, continuous pain rites, and we looking at it from a 3-dimensional psychological standpoint, but we never looking at the spiritual implication of the domestic violence. It's also a pain rite. It's what them Catholic priests do to them kids by torturing them before they can get the adrenochrome. It's a pain rite. Yeah, so when they get their adrenochrome from the babies, exercising those pain rites, and they use all kind of torture techniques and to issue pain, but that's to keep the atmosphere's vibration low enough so they can stay here. But it ain't gonna be able to be that low much longer because the people are beginning to wake up. And once they start severing these contracts, because it boils down to conserving your own energy. When you tie into a soul contract, somebody else is sharing your energy with you. And if you don't get that contract severed successfully, you will always be sharing your energy. You'll always have a leak. Something will always be amiss when you try to walk your path, and you're not going to know what it is because you got a soul contract drawing. Your energy is leaking. That's improper energy conservation, and you can't sustain a good forward progress being trapped in a soul contract situation. It'll always sabotage you in some way. Like if it's a guy who made a soul contract of fidelity to a female, every time he try to date, he's gonna suffer unrequited love. He can't escape it because he made an agreement. And that agreement was fidelity. But you can marry somebody and that not be part of the marriage. Every marriage is not monogamous, just like every marriage is not polygamous. You got different groups of people that have different characteristics and traits. Some people supposed to be monogamous, some supposed to be celibate, and some supposed to be part of a polygamous situation. All of these are contingent upon the contracts made. The tribal clan you come from, you can check your totem. Your totem always come to you, but you probably don't pay it much attention. It comes to you in dreams, visions, pops up on the TV screen to check on you, and you never know what that was. So I try to always give people the information that other people hide from them. And this is one of the things that they hide from us a lot, is the soul contracts and the severing of the soul contracts. The blood oaths and the severing of the blood oaths. They'll tell you how to make a pact, an agreement with the devil, but they won't tell you how to break it. They won't tell you how the devil didn't perform the contract as he said he was, that you can take his soul the same as he can take yours. They don't tell you none of that. So I'm going to try to always give y'all something that ain't nobody else going to give y'all. And the breaking of the blood oath is the one that very few people know how to do. They know how to make them, make pacts and agreements and stuff like that, but they do not um, know how to sever a blood oath either amicably or individually. But once you sever it individually, whoever the other person is, um, they had to have had an ample opportunity, or you had to do what they call due diligence in trying to contact them to sever the oath, and you have to state that intention to the universe or God or whatever you want to call it. But once you've done that, it's going to be a consequence for one-sided breaking of a blood oath or a blood right. You can't do it one-sided without the other person suffering the consequence, especially since you have to vex the grievance. The best you can do to try to help them is to minimize it, as I said earlier, but those blood oaths are the most powerful oaths on earth. So, I'm going to look through here and see if anybody had any questions about what I was talking about. And, okay. I'm going to check on you, Carmen. So I think I got it. That's what I always say on God, because it's in here. Yeah. When you say on God, you're talking about on yourself. You're the only God that's going to save you. And the helping hand you looking for is where, Zoe, the end of your own arm, right? So, yeah. So I just had that on my mind because I had a situation where in meditation I kept being tied to somebody and I couldn't break that connection. I couldn't figure out why. But as I kept going over it and going over it, I realized that it was a soul contract and it was tied together through a blood oath. And we also have residual things from past lives that bring us back together in this one. So all of those things converging is make it hard to sever that bond. And also, I wouldn't want to sever that bond in a manner that would bring that person damage because they was only good to me. But that bond has to either be attended to or severed. It can't just be left. Yeah, well, the sexual energy, the sex energy is twin energy to spirit energy. You can charge the sexual fluids, and when they come into the three-dimensional world, they will manifest something from the from the spirit world into the physical. You moved it from spirit to physical by agency of the body fluids. It's the same as writing, but it's more powerful than writing because there's more passion and energy attached to the sex energy than it is to the focus and concentration, a higher erudition, or a well-trained intellect. The intellect will bring it in through the agency of writing, but the artistic will bring it in through the agency of art and sex. Sex is spiritual art practiced with mental discipline in the physical world. It's a spiritual art practice with a physical discipline, with a spiritual discipline in the physical world. You might have made a blood oath, Marcel, so you need to go over it in your head and remember, did y'all do anything that can bind y'all permanently? Piercings, tattoos, y'all probably got in a fight with somebody together and both of y'all was bleeding and didn't even notice the exchange of blood when you was saying you was going to be ride or die forever after the fight and y'all showing out. There's so many ways you can make the blood oath and without knowing it. So you look at, and you can also in the exchange of body fluids, you can make an oath too. But those are not the same as a blood oath. That's normally to make something happen, to manifest with the sex energy and the sex fluids. Oral copulation while a woman is on her cycle is a blood right. And that is supposed to bind the man to the woman through multiple lifetimes. I don't know. Better be sure that's the one you want to be with. Um, there's also some psychological strings that can be attached too. Like the person can be, uh, yeah, children are more than the blood right. Um, children are more than the blood right. So, we have to, when the children involved, it's always going to make the situation a lot more difficult because they like us and the other person mixed in one body to an extent. And that's an agreement of all agreements there, but it's not a blood oath. The parents can work together for the child, um, but sometimes the fact that the child and the affection for the child is also a reflection of the affection that you have for that person will make it more and more difficult to sever the relationship. So you have to go and review the relationship. What did you do? You know, what religious ceremonies did y'all attend together? Um, how many weddings did y'all go? Count the number, because if you go to a certain amount of weddings with somebody, you making a promise to them to marry them. I think it's 3 weddings. If you take a person, if you go to 3 weddings with the same person, that's like promising the marriage. So y'all observing other people to determine how y'all wedding gonna be. It's like window shopping. um, yeah, yeah, they got a lot of that, and then they tell everybody else you a deadbeat. They won't let you do what you supposed to do as a father. Yeah, well, we gonna fix all that, and that's part of the grievances that I was given to deal with when I realized what was going on. That was one of the grievances, is that there's a lot of guys that had been praying that God intervened, where these women use these children as poker chips and paychecks, and they don't really care about the children. So, in order to deal with that situation, I had to see it up close and personal, so I'll be able to be fair and just in the determination. So, yeah, you have to figure out a way of communication. Try another family member, like her mama or a sister or something, and let it be known that you just want to see your son, and you know, and write him letters, you know. And if you can't get the letter to him, get you a journal book and write to him as often as you feel like it, like you're communicating with him. You're creating a psychic channel where you're still feeding him information even though you're not physically present. So the power of writing extends beyond just putting it on the paper. And that's why they say the pen is mightier than the sword, because you take mental and spiritual things and bring them from mind and spirit, and you put them into 3D by putting it on paper, you know. So communicate with your son through paper, and you know, you can mail him letters, or you could keep him a journal. You could write him a book where you pick him out quotes and you fill the book up with quotes for him while you're thinking about him or whatever. But that writing builds that psychic link. So you want to build that psychic link to him, where he always be able to draw from dad's energy and dad's um, wisdom in order to help guide him when he don't have the physical presence. Hey, Juanita. So we was talking about oh yeah, when they go to putting the police in, they ain't even playing regular games. Then they trying to get you hurt. They're trying to get you hurt. So, the there is something you can do though. You go, don't even deal with none of the people. Send them people to go deal with them. I wouldn't do it, but that's the other alternative that they use. Um, they got groups out there that fight for the rights of fathers to be able to participate in their children's life. But that's why we gotta clean this mess up, because there's too many women having babies by deadbeats that want to let their father participate, and then there's too many deadbeat women that want the father to just pay the bills and don't want them around their kid, and they use the kid as a tool of punishment. You know, you can't use children to punish the other parent because you can't make the other parent do what you want to do. That's not right. If you ain't looking out for the best interests of the child first, then you in the child's way. You stopping and stifling their growth. You got to look out for the best interests of the child first. You got to see your child as your passport into the future, further than you can take yourself. So let's say you live to be 150, but let's say your child live to be 155. That means that how old you was when you had that child, when they get past your age, when they get past the difference in the ages, now they going into how long you've been here, zooming straight into the future. They get to be 155 years. That might be 60 years further in the future than you could have made it on your own. It might be 100 years further into the future. 150, you might have had them when you was 20. You know, that mean that they made it, you know, a lot further along into the future. That's you. That's your passport. They also your passport to the return, because the DNA goes out on a divergence, comes back in on a convergence, and moves to the singularity. But it always causes an insurgence when it do that. So the DNA follows that path. Who, Mazel? Oh, you talking about if you go to court, they call you low down as hell? Now, they go to court on you in a minute. Then you go to court, then you a rat. Or you enemy of the state. You know, stuff like that. So, review your personal path and make sure you don't have any soul contracts to sever. If you do, you need to sever them. And try to do them as amicably as possible. And, you know, Juanita, I went over a few things earlier in the video that you might have missed about how to sever them, how you get into them and stuff like that. But I'm about to close this one out because I didn't really have a lot to talk about. I just wanted to tell people how they had to exit those contracts. And amicably is always the best way to enter a exit a blood contract, a blood right. You need to do it together so that nobody suffer a negative side effect and they continue their life, you know, and become more happy and prosperous along those lines. So I'm gonna wrap it up here, and I'm trying to stop doing Facebook videos. This is just something to do while I'm waiting on these other brothers to do what they supposed to do so I can continue this mission. And from there, I don't know. I'm waiting. I'll see what happens. So, keep your head up. Stay united. Stay strong. And keep looking to the future. We're going to make it there. And I'll talk to y'all later.